Hare Krishna everyone, welcome to today's reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yesterday we finished second canto, so we just at the first 13 of the first chapter of the third canto. So let's recite the verses of glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam by Sanatana Goswami. Sarva Shastra Dipiyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhantna Ratnadya, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada, Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu, Kalidvanto Ditaditya, Shri Krishna Parivartita, Paramananda Patnaya, Prema Vakshaksharayate, Sarvanda Sarva Sevyaya, Shri Krishna Namostume, Madeka Bandho Matsangin, Madguru Matmahadana, Manishtaraka Madbhagya Madananda Namostute Asadu Saduta Dayin Atinicho Chataraka Hanamuncha Kadachinmam Premna Harit Kantayos Puram. Translation. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all of the worlds. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali, you are the exact image of Shri Krishna. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Shri Krishna himself. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. Today's reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. Continuing where we left off yesterday, at verse 13. You have your phone with you? Okay. I don't have any more books. Okay. Actually, I do have small ones, but I have to find them for tomorrow. So 3.1.13 translation. You are maintaining offense personified, Duryodhana, as your infallible son, but he is envious of Lord Krishna. And because you are thus maintaining a non-devotee of Krishna, you are devoid of all auspicious qualities. Relieve yourself of this ill fortune as soon as possible and do good to the whole family. A good purport, a good son is called apatya, one who does not allow his father to fall down. The son can protect the father's soul when the father is dead by offering sacrifices to please the Supreme Lord Vishnu. This system is still prevalent in India. After the death of his father, a son goes to offer sacrifices at the lotus feet of Vishnu at Gaya and thus delivers the father's soul if the father is fallen. But if the son is already an enemy of Vishnu, how, in such an inimical mood, can he offer sacrifice under Lord Vishnu's lotus feet? Lord Krishna is directly the personality of Godhead Vishnu, and Duryodhana was inimical to him. He would therefore be unable to protect his father, Dhritarashtra, after his death. He himself was to fall down because of his faithlessness towards Vishnu. How, then, could he protect his father? He advised Dhritarashtra to get rid of such an unworthy son as Duryodhana as soon as possible, if he was at all anxious to see the good of his family. According to the moral instructions of Chanakya Pandit, what is the use of a son who is neither a learned man nor a devotee of the Lord? If a son is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord, he is just like blind eyes, a source of trouble. A physician may sometimes advise the extrication of such useless eyes from their sockets so that one can be relieved of the constant trouble. Duryodhana was exactly like blind, troubling eyes. He would be a source of great trouble to the family of Dhritarashtra, as foreseen by Vidura. Vidura therefore rightly advised his eldest brother to get rid of this source of trouble. Dhritarashtra was wrongly maintaining such personified offense under the mistaken impression that Duryodhana was a good son, able to liberate his father. Text 14. While speaking thus, Vidura, whose personal character was esteemed by respectable persons, was insulted by Duryodhana, who was swollen with anger and whose lips were trembling. Duryodhana was in company with Karna, his younger brothers, and his maternal uncle Shakuni. Purport. It is said that giving good counsel to a foolish person causes the fool to become angry, just as feeding milk to a snake only increases its venomous poison. Saint Vidura was so honorable that his character was looked up to by all respectable persons. But Duryodhana was so foolish that he dared to insult Vidura. This was due to his bad association with Shakuni, his maternal uncle, as well as with his friend Karna, who always encouraged Duryodhana in his nefarious acts. 15. Who asked him to come here, this son of a kept mistress? He is so crooked that he spies in the interest of the enemy against those on whose support he has grown up. Toss him out of the palace immediately and leave him with only his breath. Purport. When getting married, the Kshatriya kings would take on several other youngful girls along with the married princesses. These girl attendants of the king were known as dasis, or attendant mistresses. By intimate association with the king, the dasis would get sons. Such sons were called dasi putras. They had no claim to a royal position, but they would get maintenance and other facilities just like princes. Vidura was the son of such a dasi, and he was thus not counted amongst the Kshatriyas. King Dhritarashtra was very affectionate toward his younger Dasiputra brother, Vidura, and Vidura was a great friend and philosophical advisor to Dhritarashtra. Duryodhana knew very well that Vidura was a great soul and well-wisher, but unfortunately he used strong words to hurt his innocent uncle. Duryodhana not only attacked Vidura's birth, but also called him an infidel because he seemed to support the cause of Yudhishthira, whom Duryodhana considered his enemy. He desired that Vidura he immediately put out of the palace and deprived of all his possessions. If possible, he would have liked him caned until he was left with nothing but his breath. He charged that Vidura was a spy of the Pandavas because he advised King Dhritarashtra in their favor. Such is the situation of palace life and the intricacies of diplomacy that even a faultless person like Vidura could be charged with something abominable and punished. Vidura was struck with wonder at such unexpected behavior from his nephew Duryodhana, and before anything actually happened, he decided to leave the palace for good. Text 16. Thus being pierced by arrows through his ears and afflicted to the core of his heart, Vidura placed his bow on the door and quit his brother's palace. He was not sorry, for he considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme. Purport. A devotee of the Lord is never perturbed by an awkward position created by the external energy of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 3.27 it is stated, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaham ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. A conditioned soul is absorbed in material existence under the influence of different modes of external energy. Absorbed in the false ego, he thinks that he is doing everything by himself. The external energy of the Lord, the material nature, is fully under the control of the Supreme Lord, and the conditioned soul is fully under the grip of the external energy. Therefore, the conditioned soul is fully under the control of the law of the Lord. But, due to illusion only, he thinks himself independent in his activities. Duryodhana was acting under such influence of the external nature, by which he would be vanquished at the ultimate end. He could not accept the sound advice of Vidura, but on the contrary, he insulted that great soul who was the well-wisher of his whole family. Vidura could understand this because he was a pure devotee of the Lord. In spite of being very strongly insulted by Duryodhana's words, Vidura could see that Duryodhana, under the influence of Maya, the external energy, was making progress on the path toward his own ruination. He therefore considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme, Yet he also saw how the internal energy of the Lord helped him in that particular situation. A devotee is always in a renounced temperament, because the worldly attractions can never satisfy him. Vidura was never attracted by the royal palace of his brother. He was always ready to leave the place, and devote himself completely to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Now he got the opportunity by the grace of Duryodhana, and instead of being sorry at the strong words of insult, he thanked him from within, because it gave him the chance to live alone in a holy place and fully engage in devotional service of the Lord. The word gata vyataha, without being sorry, is significant here, because Vidura was relieved from the tribulations which troubled every. He therefore thought that there was no need to defend his brother with his bow, because his brother was meant for ruination. Thus he left the palace before Duryodhana could act. Maya, the supreme energy of the Lord, acted here both internally and externally. Text 17. By his piety, Vidura achieved the advantages of the pious Kauravas. After leaving Hastinapura, he took shelter of many places of pilgrimages, which are the Lord's desire to gain high to holy places, where thousands of transcendental forms of the Lord are situated. Purport. Vidura was undoubtedly a highly elevated and pious soul, otherwise he would not have taken his birth in the Kaurava family. To have high parentage, to possess wealth, to be highly learned, and to have great personal beauty are all due to past pious acts. But such pious possessions are not sufficient for obtaining the grace of the Lord and being engaged in his transcendental loving service. Vidura considered himself less pious, and therefore he decided to travel to all the great places of pilgrimage in the world in order to achieve greater piety and advance nearer to the Lord. At that time, Lord Krishna was personally present in the world, and Vidura could have at once approached him directly, but he did not do so because he was not sufficiently freed from sin. One cannot be 100% devoted to the Lord unless and until he is completely free from all the effects of sin. Vidura was conscious that by the association of the diplomatic Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, he had lost his piety and was therefore not fit to associate at once with the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 7:28, this is confirmed in the following verse: Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridavritaham. Persons who are sinful asuras like Kamsa and Jarasandha cannot think of Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth. Only those who are pure devotees, those who follow the regulative principles of religious life as prescribed in the scriptures, are able to engage themselves in Karma Yoga and then Jnana Yoga, and thereafter, by pure meditation, can understand pure consciousness. When God consciousness is developed, one can take advantage of the association of pure devotees. Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. One is able to associate with the Lord even during the exile. Places of pilgrimages are meant for eradicating the sins of the pilgrims, and they are distributed all over the universe, all kinds for attaining pure existence and God realization. One should not be satisfied, however, by visiting the places of pilgrimage and performing one's prescribed duties. He should be eager to meet the great souls who are aware, engaged in the service of the Lord. In each and every place of pilgrimage, the Lord is present in his transcendental forms. These forms are called Archa Murtis, or forms of the Lord, which can be easily appreciated by the common man. The Lord is transcendental to our mundane senses. He cannot be seen with our present eyes, nor can he be heard with our present ears. To the degree that we have entered into the service of the Lord, or to the proportion to which our lives are freed from sins, we can perceive the Lord. But even though we are not free from sins, there's the facility to allow us the facility of seeing him in his Archa Murtis in the temple. The Lord is all-powerful, and therefore he is able to accept our service by presentation of his Archa form. No one, therefore, should foolishly think the Archa in the temple to be an idol. Such an Archa Murti is not an idol, but the Lord himself, and to the proportion to which one is free from sins, he is able to know the significance of the Archa Murti. The guidance of a pure devotee is therefore all. In the land of Bharatvarsha, there are many hundreds and thousands of places. In traditional practice, the common man visits such holy places during all seasons of the year. Some of the Archa representations of the Lord situated in different places of pilgrimage are mentioned herewith. The Lord is present at Mathura, the birthplace of Lord Krishna, as Adi Keshava. The Lord is present at Puri, Orissa, as Lord Jagannath, also known as Purushottama. He is present at Allahabad, Prayag, as Bindu Madhava. At Mandara Hill, he is present as Madhusudana. In the Anandaranya, he is known as Vasudeva, Padmanabha, and Janardana. At Vishnu Kanchi, he is known as Vishnu. And at Mayapura, he is known as Hari. There are millions and billions of such Archa forms of the Lord distributed all over the universe. All these Archa Murtis are summarized in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in the following words. Sarvatra Prakasha Tandra Bhakta Sukkardite Jagatera Adharmanash Dharmashtapite. The Lord has so distributed himself all over the universe just to give pleasure to the devotees, to give the common man facility to eradicate his sins, and to establish religious principles in the world. Text 18. He began to travel alone, thinking only of Krishna, through various holy places like Ayodhya, Dwarka, and Mathura. He traveled where the air, hill, orchard, river, and lake are all pure and sinless, and where the forms of the unlimited decorate the temples. Thus he performed the pilgrim's progress. Purport. These Archa forms of the Lord may be considered idols by the atheists, but that does not matter for persons like Vidura or his many other servants. The forms of the Lord are mentioned here as Ananta Linga. Such forms of the Lord have unlimited potency, the same as that of the Lord himself. There is no difference between the potencies of the Archa and those of the personal forms of the Lord. The example of the post box and post office may be applied here. The little post boxes distributed all over the city have the same potency as the postal system in general. The duty of the post office is to carry letters from one place to another. If one puts letters in post boxes authorized by the General Post Office, the function of carrying letters is performed without a doubt. Similarly, the Archa Murti can also deliver the same unlimited potency of the Lord as when he is personally present. Vidura therefore could see nothing but Krishna in the different Archa forms, and ultimately he was able to realize Krishna alone and nothing else. Text 19. While so traversing the earth, he simply performed duties to please the Supreme Lord Hari. His occupation was pure and independent. He was constantly sanctified by taking his bath in holy places, although he was in the dress of a mendicant and had no hair dressing nor a bed on which to lie. Thus he was always unseen by his various relatives. Purport. The first and foremost duty of a pilgrim is to satisfy the Supreme Lord Hari. While traveling as a pilgrim, one should not be worried about pleasing society. There is no need to depend on social formalities or occupation or dress. One should remain always absorbed in the function of pleasing the Lord. Thus sanctified by thought and action, one is able to realize the Supreme Lord by the process of a pilgrim's journey. Text 20. Thus, when he was in the land of Bharatvarsha, traveling to all the places of pilgrimage, he visited Prabhashakshetra. At that time, Maharaj Yudhishthira was the emperor and held the world under one military strength and one flag. Purport. More than 5,000 years ago, while Saint Vidura was traveling the earth as a pilgrim, India was known as Bharatvarsha, as it is known even today. The history of the world cannot give any systematic account for more than 3,000 years into the past. But before that, the whole world was under the flag and military strength of Maharaj Yudhishthira, who was the emperor of the world. At present, there are hundreds and thousands of flags flapping in the United Nations. But during the time of Vidura, there was, by the grace of Ajita, Lord Krishna, only one flag. The nations of the world are very eager to again have one state under one flag, But for this they must seek the favor of Lord Krishna, who alone can help us become one worldwide nation. Text 21. At the place of pilgrimage at Prabhas, it came to his knowledge that all his relatives had died due to violent passion, just as an entire forest burns due to fire produced by the frictions of bamboos. After this, he proceeded west, where the river Saraswati flows. Purport. Both the Kauravas and the Yadavas were relatives of Vidura, and Vidura heard of their extinction due to a fratricidal war. The comparison of the friction of forest bamboos to that of passionate human societies is appropriate to a forest. At any moment, there may be a flare-up of fire in the forest due to friction. No one goes to the forest to set it on fire, but due only to friction between bamboos, fire takes place and burns an entire forest. Similarly, in the greater forest of worldly transaction, the fire of war takes place because of the violent passion of the conditioned souls, illusioned by the external energy. Such a worldly fire can be extinguished only by the water of the mercy cloud of saints, just as a forest fire can be extinguished only by rains falling from a cloud. Text 22. On the bank of the river Saraswati, there were 11 places of pilgrimage, namely Trita, Ushana, Manu, Pritu, Agni, Asita, Vayu, Sudasa, Go, Guha, and Shradadeva. Vidura visited all of them and duly performed rituals. 23. There were also many other temples of various forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, established by great sages and demigods. These temples were marked with the chief emblems of the Lord, and they reminded one always of the original personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Purport. Human society is divided into 4 social orders of life and 4 spiritual divisions, applying to each and every individual person. This system is called Varnashrama Dharma and has already been discussed in many places in this great literature. The sages or persons who completely devoted themselves to the spiritual upliftment of the entire human society were known as Dvijadeva, the best amongst the twice born. The denizens of superior planets, from the moon planet and upwards, were known as Devas. Both the Dvijadevas and the Devas always established temples of Lord Vishnu in his various forms, such as Govinda, Madhusudana, Nrsimha, Madhava, Keshava, Narayana, Padmanabha, Parthasarathi, and many others. The Lord expands himself in innumerable forms, but all of them are non-different from one another. Lord Vishnu has 4 hands, and each hand holds a particular item, either a conch shell, wheel, club, or lotus flower. Of these 4 emblems, the chakra or wheel is the chief. Lord Krishna, being the original Vishnu form, has only one emblem, namely the wheel, and therefore he is sometimes called the Chakri. The Lord's chakra is the symbol of the power by which the Lord controls the whole manifestation. The tops of Vishnu temples are marked with the symbol of the wheel so that people may have the chance to see the symbol from a very long distance and at once remember Lord Krishna. The purpose of building very high temples is to give people a chance to see them from a distant place. This system is carried on in India whenever a new temple is constructed, and it appears that it is coming down from a time before recorded history. The foolish propaganda by atheists that temples were constructed only in later days is refuted here, because Vidura visited these temples at least 5,000 years ago, and the temples of Vishnu were in existence long before Vidura visited them. The great sages and demigods never established statues of men or demigods, but they established temples of Vishnu for the benefit of common men, to raise them to the platform of God consciousness. I'll stop here. I'll ask Jivana to continue reading. You'll use the... Yeah? Okay. Hare Krishna. So I can just put it on. Let's click it on. Put it on there.
So, welcome back viewers to this reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Text 24, Questions by Vidura. Narayana namaskritya naracheva naratamanam devan sarasvatim vyasoteta jaya udarayat. Offer my respectful obeisance unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Narayana, Rana Rishi, supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of fortune, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Text 24. Thereafter, he passed through wealthy provinces like Surat, Suvira, and Matsya, and through western India, known as Kurujangala. At last he reached the banks of the Yamuna, where he happened to meet Uddhava, the great devotee of Lord Krishna. Purport. The tract of land comprising 100 square miles from modern Delhi to the Mathura district in Uttar Pradesh, including a portion of the Gogan district in Punjab, East India, is considered to be the topmost place of pilgrimage in all of India. This land is sacred because Lord Krishna travelled through it many times. From the very beginning of his appearance, he was at Mathura in the house of his maternal uncle Kamsa, and he was reared by his foster father Maharaj Nanda at Vrindavan. There are still many devotees of the Lord lingering there in ecstasy in search of Krishna and his childhood associates, the gopis. It is not that such devotees meet Krishna face to face in that, but a devotee searching after Krishna is as good as seeing him personally. How this is so cannot be explained, but it is factually realized by those who are pure devotees of the Lord. Philosophically, one can understand that Lord Krishna and his remembrance are on the absolute plane, and that very idea of searching for him at Vrindavan in pure God consciousness gives more pleasure to a devotee than seeing him face to face. Such devotees of the Lord see him face to face at every moment, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Brahmagana Charita Bhakti Valochana Santa Sadeva Hitasya Suvalokiyante Yam Shamasundaram Achincha Guna Swarupam Govinda Maripurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Those who are in ecstasy of love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shamasundar Krishna, see him always in their hearts due to love and devotional service rendered to the Lord. Both Vidura and Uddhava were such elevated devotees, and therefore they both came to the bank of Yamuna and met each other. Text 25. Translation. Then, due to his great love and feeling, Vidura embraced him, Uddhava, who was a constant companion of Lord Krishna, and formerly a great student of Bharaspati. Vidura then asked him for news of the family of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Purport. Vidura was older than Uddhava, like a father, and therefore when the two met, Uddhava bowed down before Vidura, and Vidura embraced him because Uddhava was younger, like a son. Vidura's brother, Pandu, was Lord Krishna's uncle, and Uddhava was a cousin of Lord Krishna. According to social custom, therefore, Vidura was to be respected by Uddhava on the same level of his father. Uddhava was a great scholar in logic, and he was known to be the son or disciple of Bharaspati, the greatly learned priest and spiritual master of the demigods. Vidura asked Uddhava about the welfare of his relatives, although he already knew they were no longer in the world. This inquiry appears to be very queer, but Jiva Goswami states that the news was shocking to Vidura, who therefore inquired again due to great curiosity. Thus his inquiry was psychological and not practical. Text 26. Translation. Please tell me whether the original personalities of Godhead, who incarnated themselves at the request of Brahma, who was born out of the lotus flower of the Lord, and who have increased the propensity of the world by elevating everyone, are doing well in the house of Shurasena. Purport. Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram are not two different personalities of Godhead. God is one without a second, but he expands himself in many forms without their being separate from one another. They are all planetary expansions. The immediate expansion of Lord Krishna is Baladev, and Brahma, born from the lotus flower from Garbhodakshai Vishnu, is an expansion of Baladev. This indicates that Krishna and Baladev are not subjected to the regulations of the universe. On the contrary, the whole universe is under their subjugation. They appeared at the request of Brahma to liberate the burden of the world, and they relieve the world by many superhuman activities, so that everyone can become happy and prosperous. Without the grace of the Lord, no one can become happy and prosperous, because the happiness of the family of the Lord's devotees depends on the happiness of the Lord. Vidura first of all inquired about the well-being of the Lord. Text 27, translation. Please tell me whether the best friend of the Kurus, our brother-in-law Vasudeva, is doing well. He is very magnificent. He is like a father to his sisters, and he is always pleasing to his wives. Purport. Lord Krishna's father, Vasudeva, had 16 wives, and one of them, named Puravi or Rahini, the mother of Baladev, was the sister of Vidura. Vasudeva, therefore, was the husband of Vidura's sister, and thus they were brothers-in-laws. Vasudeva's sister Kunti was the wife of Pandu, Vidura's older brother, and in that sense also Vasudeva was brother-in-law to Vidura. Kunti was younger than Vasudeva, and it was the duty of the elder brother to treat younger sisters as daughters. Whenever anything was needed by Kunti, it was magnificently delivered by Vasudeva, due to his great love for his younger sister. Vasudeva never dissatisfied his wives, and at the same time he supplied the objects desired by his sister. He had special attention for Kunti because she became a widow at an early age. While inquiring about Vasudeva's welfare, Vidura remembered all about him and his family relationship. Text 28, translation. O Uddhava, please tell me how is Pradyumna, the commander-in-chief of the Yadus, who was Cupid in a former life. Rukmini bore him as her son from Lord Krishna by the grace of Brahmanas whom she pleased. Purport. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, Smara, Cupid, or Karmadev, is one of the eternal associates of Lord Krishna. Jiva Goswami has explained this very elaborately in his treatise, Krishna Sandarbha. Translation. O my friend, tell me whether Ugrasena, the king of the Savatas, Vrishnis, Bhojas, and the Shahas, is now doing well. He went far away from his kingdom, leaving aside all hopes of his royal throne, but Lord Krishna again installed him. Text 30, translation. O gentle one, does Samba fare well? He exactly resembles the son of the personality of Godhead. In a previous birth he was born as Kartikeya in the womb of the wife of Lord Shiva, and now he has been born in the womb of Jambavati, the most enriched wife of Krishna. Purport. Lord Shiva, one of the three qualitative incarnations of the personality of Godhead, is the plenary expansion of the Lord. Kartikeya, born of him, is on the same level as Pradyumna, another son of Lord Krishna. When Lord Krishna descends into the material world, all his planetary portions also appear to exhibit different functions of the Lord. But for the pastimes at Vrindavan, all functions are performed by the Lord's different planetary expansions. Vasudeva is a planetary expansion of Narayana. When the Lord appeared as Vasudeva before Devaki and Vasudeva, he appeared in his capacity as Narayana. Similarly, all the demigods of the heavenly kingdom appeared as associates of the Lord in the forms of Pradyumna, Shamba, Uddhava, etc. It is learned here that Karmadev appeared as Pradyumna, Kartikeya as Samba, and one of the Vasus as Uddhava. All of them served in their different capacities in order to enrich the pastimes of Lord Krishna. Text 31, translation. O Uddhava, does Yudhana fared well? He learned the intricacies of the military art from Arjuna and attained a transcendental destination which is very difficult to reach even for great renouncers. Purport. The destination of transcendence is to become the personal associate of the personality of Godhead, who is known as Adokshita. He who is beyond the reach of the senses. The sannyasis give up all worldly connections, namely family, wife, children, friends, home, wealth, everything, to attain the transcendental bliss of Brahmin happiness. But Adokshita happiness is beyond Brahmin happiness. The empiric philosophers enjoy a transcendental quality of bliss by philosophical speculation on the supreme truth. But beyond that pleasure is the pleasure enjoyed by Brahman in his eternal form of the personality of Godhead. Brahman bliss is enjoyed by living entities after liberation from material bondage. But Parabrahman, the personality of Godhead, enjoys eternally a bliss of his own potency, which is called a Hladini potency. The empiric philosopher who studies Brahman by negation of the external features has not yet learned the quality of the Hladini potency of Brahman. Out of many potencies of the omnipotent, there are 3 features of his eternal potency, namely Samvit, Sandini, and Ahladini. In spite of their strict adherence to the principles of Yama, Niyama, Ashana, Dhyana, Dharana, and Pranayama, the great yogis and ghanis are unable to enter the internal potency of the Lord. This internal potency is, however, easily realized by the devotees of the Lord by dint of devotional service. Duryodhana achieved this stage of life, just as he achieved expert knowledge in military science from Arjuna. Thus his life was successful to the fullest extent from both the material and spiritual angles of vision. This is the way of devotional service to the Lord. Text 32, translation. Please tell me whether Akura, the son of Swalpaka, is doing well. He is faultless soul surrendered unto the personality of Godhead. He once lost his mental equilibrium due to the ecstasy of transcendental love, and fell down on the dust of a road, which was marked with the footprints of Lord Krishna. Purport. When Akura came to Vrindavan in search of Krishna, he saw the footprints of the Lord on the dust of Nandagram, and at once fell on them in ecstasy of transcendental love. This ecstasy is possible for a devotee who is fully absorbed in incessant thoughts of Krishna. Such a pure devotee of the Lord is naturally faultless, because he is always associated with the supreme pure personality of Godhead. Constant thought of the Lord is the antiseptic method for keeping oneself free from infectious contamination of the material qualities. The pure devotee of the Lord is always in company with the Lord by thinking of him. Yet, in the particular context of time and place, the transcendental emotions take a different turn, and this breaks the mental equilibrium of the devotee. Lord Chaitanya displayed the typical example of transcendental ecstasy, as we can understand from the life of this incarnation of God. Text 33, translation. As the Vedas are the reservoir of sacrificial purposes, so the daughter of King Devaki Bhoja conceived the Supreme Personality of Godhead in her womb, as did the mother of the demigods. Is she, Devaki, doing well? Purport. The Vedas are full of transcendental knowledge and spiritual values, and thus Devaki, the mother of Lord Krishna, conceived the Lord in her womb as the personified meaning of the Vedas. There is no difference between the Vedas and the Lord. The Vedas aim at understanding of the Lord, and the Lord is the Vedas personified. Devaki is compared to the meaningful Vedas, and the Lord to their purpose personified. Text 34, translation. May I inquire whether Aniruddha is doing well? He is the fulfiller of all desires of the pure devotees, and is being considered from yore to be the cause of the Rig Veda, the creator of mind, and the 4th plenary expansion of Vishnu. Purport. Adi Chatubhuj, the original expansions from Baladev, are Vasudev, Shankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. All of them are Vishnu Tattva, or non-different personalities of Godhead. In the incarnation of Sri Ram, all these different expansions appeared for particular pastimes of Lord. Lord Rama is the original Vasudev, and his brothers were Shankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Aniruddha is also the cause of Mahavishnu, from whose breathing the Rig Veda appeared. All this is nicely explained in the Markandeya Purana. In the incarnation of Lord Krishna, Aniruddha appeared as the son of the Lord. Lord Krishna in Dwalka is the Vasudeva expansion of the original group. The original Lord Krishna never leaves Goloka Vrindavan. All the planetary expansions are one and the same Vishnu Tattva, and there is no difference in their potency. Text 35, translation. O sober one, others such as Hidika, Churusna Desna, Gada, and the son of Satyabhama, who accept Lord Sri Krishna as the soul of the self, and thus follow his path without deviation, are they well? Text 36, translation. Also, let me inquire whether Maharaj Yudhishthira is now maintaining the kingdom according to religious principles, and with respect for the path of religion. Formerly, Duryodhana was burning with envy because Yudhishthira was being protected by the arms of Krishna and Arjuna as if they were his own arms. Purport. Maharaj Yudhisthira was the emblem of religion. When he was ruling his kingdom with the help of Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the opulence of his kingdom surpassed all imaginations of the opulence of the kingdom of heaven. His actual arms were Lord Krishna and Arjuna. He surpassed everyone's opulence. Duryodhana became envious of this opulence, planned so many schemes to put Yudhisthira into difficulty, and at last the battle of Kurukshetra was brought about. After the battle of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhisthira was again able to rule his legitimate kingdom, and he reinstated the principles of honour and respect for religion. That is the beauty of the kingdom ruled by the pious king like Maharaj Yudhisthira. Text 37. Please tell me whether the unconquerable Bhima, who is like a cobra, has released his long-cherished anger upon the sinners. The field of battle would not tolerate even the wonderful club when he stepped on the path. Purple. Vidura knew the strength of Bhima. Whenever Bhima was on the battlefield, he steps on the path, and the wonderful playing of his club was unbearable for the enemy. Powerful Bhima did not take steps against the sons of Dhritarashtra for a long time. Vidura's inquiry was whether he had yet released his anger, which was like that of a suffering cobra. When a cobra releases its venom after long-cherished anger, its victim cannot survive. Text 38, translation. Please tell me whether Arjuna, whose bow bears the name Gandharva, and who is always famous amongst the chariot warriors for vanquishing his enemies, is doing well. He once satisfied Lord Shiva by covering him with arrows, when Lord Shiva came as an unidentified false hunter. Purport. Lord Shiva tested Arjuna's strength by picking a quarrel with him over a hunted boar. He confronted Arjuna in the false dress of a hunter, and Arjuna covered him with arrows until Lord Shiva was satisfied with Arjuna's fighting. He offered Arjuna the Pushyapati weapon and blessed him. Here, Vidura inquired about the great warrior's well-being. Text 39, translation. Are the twin brothers who are protected by their brothers doing well? Just as the eye is always protected by the eyelid, they are protected by the sons of Pritha, who snatched back their rightful kingdom from the hands of their enemy, Duryodhana. Just as Garuda snatched nectar from the mouth of Indra, the thunderbolt carrier. Purport. Indra, the king of heaven, carries a thunderbolt in his hand and is very strong, yet Garuda, the carrier of Lord Vishnu, was able to snatch nectar from his mouth. Similarly, Duryodhana was as strong as the king of heaven, and still the sons of Pritha, the Pandavas, were able to snatch away their kingdom from Duryodhana. Both Garuda and the Parthas are pet devotees of the Lord, and thus it was possible for them to face such strong enemies. Vidura's inquiry was about the youngest brothers of the Pandavas, namely Nakula and Sahadev. These twin brothers were sons of Madri, the stepmother of the other Pandavas. But although they were stepbrothers, because Kunti took charge of them after their departure of Madri with her husband Maharaj Pandu, Nakula and Sahadev were as good as the other three Pandavas, Yudhisthira, Bhima and Arjuna. The 5 brothers are known in the world as regular brothers. The 3 elder Pandavas took care of the younger brothers, just as the eyelid takes care of the eye. Vidura was anxious to know whether, after winning back their own kingdom from the hands of Duryodhana, the younger brothers were still living happily under the care of the elder brothers. Text 40, translation. O my lord, is Pritha still living? She lived only for the sake of her fatherless children. Otherwise, it was impossible for her to live without King Pandu, who was the greatest commander and who alone conquered the 4 directions simply with the help of a second bow. Purport. A faithful wife cannot live without her lord. The husband, and therefore all widows, used to voluntarily embrace the burning fire which consumed the dead husband. This system was very common in India because all the wives were chaste and faithful to their husbands. Later on, with the advent of the age of Kali, the wives gradually began to be less adherent to their husbands, and a voluntary embrace of the fire by the widows became a thing of the past. Very recently, this system was abolished, since the voluntary system has become a forcible social custom. When Maharaj Pandu died, both his wives, namely Kunti and Madri, were prepared to embrace the fire. but Madri requested Kunti to live for the sake of the younger children, the 5 Pandavas. This was agreed upon by Kunti at the added request of Vyasadeva. In spite of her great bereavement, Kunti decided to live, not to enjoy life in the absence of her husband, but only to give protection to the children. This incident is referred to here by Vidura because he knew all the facts about his sister-in-law Kunti Dev. It is understood that Maharaj Pandu was a great warrior, and that he alone, with the help of bow and arrow, could conquer the world's 4 directions. In the absence of such a husband, it was almost impossible for Kunti to live on, even as a widow, but she had to do it for the sake of her 5 children. Text 41, translation. O gentle one, I simply lament for he, Dhritarashtra, who rebelled against his brother after death. By him I was driven out of my own house, although I am his sincere well-wisher, because he accepted the line of action adopted by his own sons. Purport. Vidura did not ask about the welfare of his older brother, because there was no chance of his well-being, only news of his gliding down to hell. Vidura was a sincere well-wisher for Dhritarashtra, and he had a thought about him in the corner of his heart. He lamented that Dhritarashtra could rebel against the sons of his dead brother Pandu, and that he could drive him, Vidura, out of his own the dictation of his crooked sons. In spite of these actions, Vidura never became an enemy of Dhritarashtra, but continued to be his well-wisher, and at the large stage of Dhritarashtra's life, it was Vidura only who proved to be his really friend. Such is the behaviour of a Vaishnava like Vidura. He desires all good, even for his enemies. Text 42, translation. I am not astonished at this. Having travelled all over the world without being seen by others, the activities of the personality of Godhead, which are like those of a man in this mortal world, are bewildering to others. But I know of his greatness by his grace, and thus I am happy in all respects. Purport. Although he was the brother of Dhritarashtra, Vidura was completely different. By the grace of Lord Krishna, he was not foolish like his brother, and thus his brother's association could not influence him. Dhritarashtra and his materialistic sons wanted to falsely rule over the world by dint of their own strength. The Lord encouraged them in this, and thus they became more and more bewildered. But Vidura wanted to achieve sincere devotional service of the Lord, and therefore become a soul absolutely surrendered to the absolute personality of Godhead. He could realize this in the progress of his pilgrim's journey, and thus he was freed from all doubts. He was not at all sorry to be bereft of his hearth and home, because he now had the experience that dependence on the mercy of the Lord is a greater freedom than so-called freedom at home. A person should not be in the renounced rule of life unless he is firmly convinced of being protected by the Lord. This stage of life is explained in the Bhagavad Gita as a Bhayam Sattva Samshuddhi. Every living entity is factually completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord, but unless one is in the pure state of existence, he cannot be established in this position. This state of dependence is called Sattva Samshuddhi, or purification of one's existence. The result of such purification is exhibited in fearlessness. A devotee of the Lord, who is called Narayan Para, is never afraid of anything, because he is always aware of the fact that the Lord protects him in all circumstances. With this conviction, Vidura travelled alone, and he was not seen or recognized by any friend or foe. Thus he enjoyed freedom of life without obligation to the many duties of the world. When Lord Krishna was personally present in the mortal world in his eternal blissful form of Shyamasundar, those who were not pure devotees of the Lord could not recognize him or know his glories. Aviganati man mudha manusim tamam ashritam. Bhagavad Gita 9:11. He is always bewildering to the non-devotees, but he is always seen by the devotees by dint of their pure devotional service to him. Text 43, translation. Despite his being the Lord and being always willing to relieve the distress of sufferers, he, Krishna, refrained from killing the Kurus. Although they committed all sorts of sins, and although he saw other kings constantly agitating the earth by their strong military movements carried out under the dictation of 3 kinds of false pride. Purport. As declared in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord appears in this mortal world to execute his much-needed mission of killing the miscreants and giving protection to the suffering faithful. In spite of that mission, Lord Krishna tolerated the insults to Draupadi by the Kurus and the injustices perpetrated against the Pandavas, as well as insults to himself. The question may be raised, why did he tolerate such injustices and insults in his presence? Why did he not chastise the Kurus immediately? When Draupadi was insulted in the assembly by the Kurus by their attempt to see her naked in the presence of all, the Lord protected Draupadi by supplying an unlimited length of clothing. But he did not just chastise the insulting party immediately. This silence of the Lord did not mean, however, that he excused the offences of the Kurus. There were many other kings on earth who had become very proud of three kinds of possessions: wealth, education, and followers. And they were constantly agitating the earth by movements of military strength. The Lord was just waiting to get them together on the battlefield of Kurukshetra and kill them all at one time, just to make a shortcut in his killing mission. Godless kings or heads of state, when puffed up by advancement of material wealth, education, and increase of population, always make a show of military strength and give trouble to the innocent. When Lord Krishna was personally present, there were many such kings all over the world, and he thus arranged for the battle of Kurukshetra. In his manifestation of Vishvarupa, the Lord expressed his mission of killing as follows: I have willingly descended on the earth in my capacity of inexorable time in order to decrease the unwanted population. I shall finish all those who have assembled here except you, the Pandavas. This killing does not wait for you to take part in it. It is already arranged. All will be killed by me. If you want to become famous as the hero of the battlefield and thus enjoy the booty of war, then, O Saivasachi, just become the intimate cause of this killing and thus take the credit. I have already killed all these great warriors: Bhishma, Drona, Jayadratha, Karna, and many other great generals. Do not worry. Fight the battle and be famous as a great hero. The Lord always wants to see his devotees as the hero of some episode which he himself performs. He wanted to see his devotee and friend Arjuna as the hero of the battle of Kurukshetra, and thus he waited for all the miscreants of the world to assemble. That, and nothing else, is the explanation of his waiting. Text 34, translation. The appearance of the Lord is manifested for the annihilation of the upstarts. His activities are transcendental and are enacted for the understanding of all persons. Otherwise, since the Lord is transcendental to all material modes, what purpose could he serve by coming to earth? Purport. Ishvara Parama Krishna Saksinananda Vigraha. The form of the Lord is eternal, blissful, and all-satisfying. His so-called birth is therefore an appearance only, like the birth of the sun on the horizon. His birth does not, like that of the living entities, take place under the influence of material nature and the bondage of the reactions of the past deeds. His words and activities are independent pastimes and are not subject to the reactions of material nature. In the Bhagavad Gita 4.14 it is said, Namam karmane limpante nama karma spala priha iti mam yo pajanate karma bena sa bhadyate. The law of karma, enacted by the Supreme Lord for the living entities, cannot be applicable to him, nor has the Lord any desire to improve himself by activities like those of ordinary living beings. Ordinary living beings work for the improvement of their conditioned lives, but the Lord is already full of all opulence, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. Why should he desire improvement? No one can excel him in any opulence, and therefore the desire for improvement is absolutely useless for him. One should always discriminate between the activities of the Lord and those of ordinary living beings. Thus one may come to the right conclusion regarding the Lord's transcendental position. One who can come to the conclusion of the Lord's transcendence can become a devotee of the Lord, and can at once be freed from all the reaction of past deeds. It is said, Karamanai niradatta kinta yicha bhakti bhajam. The Lord minimizes or nullifies the reactions of influence of the devotee's past deeds. The activities of the Lord are to be accepted and relished by all living entities. His activities are to attract the ordinary man towards the Lord. The Lord always acts in favour of the devotees, and therefore ordinary men who are fruitive actors or seekers of salvation may be attracted to the Lord when he acts as a protector of the devotees. The fruitive actors can attain their goals by devotional service, and the salvationists can also attain their goal in life by devotional service to the Lord. The devotees do not want the fruitive results of their work, nor do they want any kind of salvation. They relish the glorious superhuman activities of the Lord, such as his lifting Govardhan Hill and his killing of doomed Putana in infancy. His activities are enacted to attract all kinds of men, karmis, ganis, and bhaktas. Because he is transcendental to all the laws of karma, there is no possibility of accepting a form of maya as forced on the ordinary living entities, who are bound by the actions and reactions of their own deeds. The secondary purpose of his appearance is to annihilate the upstart asuras and to stop the nonsense of atheistic propaganda by less intelligent persons. By the Lord's causeless mercy, the asuras, who are killed personally by the personality of Godhead, get salvation. The meaningful appearance of the Lord is always distinct from ordinary birth. Even the pure devotees have no connection with the material body, and certainly the Lord, who appears as he is in his Saksidananda form, is not limited by a material form. Thus ends our Srimad Bhagavatam Purana reading for today, and I hope you will join us again tomorrow. Haribol.